with every cosmetic surgery, it tends to be the trend where at first it's exaggerated because people kind of want to subtly let others know that they went ahead and did this or that or whatever. And then it tends to be a little overdone, and then they want to kind of look a little more natural, so it normalizes, if you will. That tends to be the trend. So breast augmentation used to be go big or go home. People still say that, but really the choices that patients are making are a bit smaller than they were before.
Dr. Chiu, welcome to From Vision to Creation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today.
Thank you for having me. And again, I'm sorry for having to reschedule it earlier and feeling a little under the weather, but like I said, I'll try to bring the energy and make this interesting.
No problem at all. And I really appreciate you coming, even though you're sick. I'm very grateful for that. But Dr. Chiu, it really is a pleasure to have you because you've built an incredible career in Beverly Hills as a plastic surgeon, known for your artistry, precision, and attention to detail. Over the past 2 decades, you've really made a name for yourself in your field, a trusted name that is, and you're known for not just viewing surgery as a science, but also as art, which I think is very interesting. And in addition to all of that, at the same time, audiences from all over the world have gotten to know you through Netflix's Bling empire. And your presence on the show and your authenticity really brought a whole new level of visibility to the AAPI community, which I absolutely love. So I'm really just excited to talk to you, Dr. Chiu, about building a life that bridges medicine, passion, and purpose, and the lessons that you've learned living at the intersection of all three.
Okay, well, shoot, I have to say you're really good at this because you just go nonstop with it all. You seem to have it all right up in your head and ready to answer.
Well, Dr. Chiu, when you started medical school, I know that you were interested in becoming a pediatrician. Can you kind of talk to us about what drew you to change direction so many times, and then what ended up finally having you land on plastic surgery?
Sure. Most medical students, when they go through medical school and training, they usually change their mind at least once or twice, and the average is actually, well, when I was going through medical school, 2.5 times. I wanted to go into pediatrics when I went to medical school because I looked up to my own pediatrician when I was younger and had done a rotation with him through a program in high school. Enjoyed it so much, I decided to go ahead and go in that direction and wanting to help shape the young lives of kids. It's not only that you're helping someone getting better, but also helping to shape them into various different things. Like, for instance, what is healthy? What is, if you will, we all have little, sometimes big, problems as we grow up. No household is absolutely perfect. And identifying some of these things as I saw kids coming in, it was really interesting, and for myself as well, to look at my doctor as a secondary father figure and asking for advice for different things, whether it was like, well, he's checked me out and I'm okay, but then it's like, he asks how I'm doing in school or something, and I, let him know how it is and if there's an issue, and he sometimes gave me a resolution. Not that I couldn't do this with my parents, but the fact that he even asked, you're more likely to go ahead and bring it forward if you're asked about a problem. A lot of kids will just kind of hold it in until they are asked, right? So that kind of thing, it was interesting. And going through medical school, you go through different clinical rotations, which basically are the different facets of not only primary care, but also specialties that you're possibly interested in. And in going through these, in going through them, I really was interested in radiology because I had done photography when I was younger in high school and in junior high. And well, there's a close correlation with radiology and the images that you see and taking photographs and such. being able to diagnose things and identify things on the photographs of X-rays or CT scans or whatnot. So that really interested me, and I really enjoyed interventional radiology, which is where a radiologist will do a procedure to benefit the patient, like for instance, balloon angioplasty to relieve a heart blockage. And so that was really interesting to me, or inserting something, watching them do this, and actually like guiding my hands and letting me feel what it feels like. Then from there in residency, I really got interested in, not in residency, later on in my medical school. See, this is where the fogginess and being a little under the weather may mix me up as far as my timeline. But I really enjoyed the surgical rotations in that this was something where you saw an immediate cause and effect, and you knew what you were doing was helping or not helping and how it was affecting the patient. Obviously, some of the most interesting things were watching my attendings save lives. And so that was really impactful because of the immediate effect that you saw. You had a split second to make a decision as to how you were going to approach this and what you were going to do. And any delay could change the effect of somebody living or dying, or being cured, or possibly not having a even more complicated issue. Okay. As for plastic surgery, that came later on because, quite frankly, it's a very specialized field, obviously, and cosmetic plastic surgery is even more specialized than just plastic surgery. People forget that plastic surgery involves all soft tissues: burns, hand surgery, craniofacial, reconstructive, breast surgery, all these various different things, microvascular surgery. And so, you're basically trying to save tissue, and then the next step after that is to create some kind of normalcy as far as like cosmetic normalcy. But that comes later, and so it's very specialized. Some people wish to get into cosmetics thinking that that's all plastic surgery is, but it's not. There's so many other things, and some people are good at it, some people aren't. One of the facets of plastic surgery is obviously the artistic beauty of it all. But then there's also other aspects that I really enjoy about plastic surgery. One of them being the surgical aspect, seeing an immediate result, just like I did in general surgeries, like, doing a hernia repair or saving somebody's life who had been in a trauma. And then there's also the psychological aspect. Why is it that somebody comes in wanting to do these things? And everybody is different. You have to remember, and I think that a lot of surgeons forget this, you develop this as you go on and experience more and more types of patients. And if you're successful in this career, gaining experience about how to deal with different types of patients. What is normal to you may not be normal to the patient. Case in point, I had a patient who I thought was like super skinny and everything already. She wanted her arms to be even thinner. And when I questioned her about it, she comes from, well, she's not Japanese. She was actually Australian, but she came from Japan. Her husband was Japanese, and she moved there with him. And in Japan, she was considered thick and fat.
Wow.
Even though I could put my fingers around her bicep, like my wrist. And so I understood this, and I checked her out, and I saw that, yes, we could do something to go ahead and thin down her arms a bit more. She described what it was that she was envisioning and gave me representative examples of some of her friends and such that she wouldn't mind having her arms look more like. And that's the other thing. Describing something like an arm to you or me may not be the same as what she was describing, and it wasn't, because it wasn't just the arm, it was the shoulder, it was the way, it was how things flowed. And you do have to look at everything, because if you're trying to maintain a natural look, there has to be a certain harmony and flow that looks natural, okay? Otherwise, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, and it can look like completely odd, kind of like Popeye and his arms, okay? But when we were done, she was very happy with the results, and yeah, went home very happy. So those three aspects: psychology, beauty, or artistry, if you want to call it, and surgery, the immediate results of your actions in the operating room.
And I've heard you say that plastic surgery is the perfect trifecta of art, surgery, and psychology. And just to your point that you're talking about right now, I think that that is what makes plastic surgery so different from any other type of medical field, because I feel like in general medicine, you have certain markers where you say, this means healthy, this means unhealthy. And usually it's, if you're being treated for any kind of symptoms, it's because you're sick or you have a broken bone. And so there's a solution, and there are very specific guidelines that determine what is healthy or unhealthy, fixed or broken. Plastic surgery, however, is so different because you're trying to achieve a result to please a patient, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So have you ever had any instances where somebody comes to you and immediately you know that they have the wrong idea of what it is that they're looking for, or rather they're not looking for plastic surgery for the right reasons?
Well, yes, that happens quite a bit, and you end up wanting to. This is where the psychology of this comes in, and just to make it clear for your audience, when we say plastic surgery, we're talking about aesthetic plastic surgery, or some people call it cosmetic surgery, because of course, like I said, there's reconstructive as well.
Right.
I was trained in all of this stuff. It just so happens that my focus and I guess you can say my specialty, where I seem to excel in, is the cosmetic portion of it all. And when a patient comes in asking for something that seems unreasonable, first I ask them, what is it that bothers you about it? And what is it that you're trying to achieve? I mean, they're telling me what they want to achieve, but what benefit do you see from this? And in their responses, sometimes they change my mind, and I'm like, well, I totally understand that. Okay. Maybe to 90% of us, we see that this is not something that is the norm, or let's just say widely accepted. But for you and for what you want, this is understandable, as long as it falls within the very broad focus of society. For instance, I'm not going to go ahead and make somebody or help somebody to look more like a cat because that's how they feel. What if they end up changing how they feel about this later on? Some things are not reversible. So you have to keep that kind of a thing in mind. But for someone who, for instance, wants to look a little bit more like Jessica Rabbit, that extreme of a hourglass, yeah, you can understand that if they have the right reasons and if they are somewhere close to it, and why they haven't been able to achieve it on their own, or why a corset isn't appropriate for them. But if it's somebody who just does not seem that way, and it's physically nearly impossible, I try to explain to them why I feel like it may not be the best thing for them to shoot for, because almost like exchanging your body for somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's nothing similar to what you are. Like if you just happen to be 4'10", and you feel that inside you are a 6 foot tall, Twiggy-esque figure, it's not going to be possible to give you that kind of that height first of all, and maybe there is a way to give you that proportion, but is it reasonable? Okay, we don't want you to be most surgeons would not want their patients to become a caricature or a or some type of result where they will have more issues due to being in society. Okay, if we weren't accepting or listening to what patients are looking for, we wouldn't have things like transitions. We wouldn't have things like leg lengthening and all these other things. But they're there, and it's within possibilities. And in the future, I may end up eating my words because things can change and modify, and that's one of the wonderful things about society. We continue to grow and change.
That's well said, Dr. Chu. And one thing that I really wanted to ask you about that I found very interesting about your journey was that there wasn't a plastic surgery elective at your residency program. So you went out and to another school during your vacation time to find one. And then that's what kind of changed the path of your career. What was it in you that felt so strongly motivated to go and seek one out that way? Because, most people that are in school, they'll say, oh, well, they don't offer the elective program, so that's just that. Why did you feel such a strong sense of purpose to pursue this?
Because I had FOMO. Basically, is I had a very strong career FOMO. I had dabbled in cosmetic surgery when the plastic surgeons came and did some surgeries at the hospitals. And the fact of the matter is that there wasn't a lot being done in the different hospitals I was at, or I wasn't exposed to it because we're in general surgery. But the thing about it was that you covered any attendings who were in the umbrella of the teaching facility. Okay. And so you saw that the plastic surgeons came in to do some of the trauma cases, or like, for instance, when you had somebody who had a decubitus ulcer from being in one position for too long, the general surgeons would go ahead and debride or make sure that things weren't infected once things were cleaned and there was nothing else for us to do. Then they would need like a flap coverage in order to not get reinfected. So, or to even just to look normal. So we would consult them. They would come in and perform these procedures. It started as that, and then little by little, we saw some of these procedures, like some tummy tucks and some breast augmentations, and it was kind of interesting to me. I know that the opportunity was there to do outside rotations, but due to the need to cover our core electives and where we had contracts with the different rotations, they didn't foresee me being able to do an elective outside of the facilities for the time for my year. Okay, for my last year and a half. So, big FOMO. I mean, I there's not much I could do about it. Because you're sent to wherever you're told to go to, and so I thought about it, and it was just on a whim. And I asked the director of rotations, so what if I take my 2 weeks of vacation together at one time? Is that all right? And I didn't tell them why. She just looked at me and said, "Sure, if you want to." And so I called around. And I happened to find one where I could go ahead and slide into the rotation at the time that I wanted to go to. And it happened to be a very good program, the one in Philly. It happened, I mean, things just aligned, dominoes just aligned up for me. I was very, very fortunate. And to this day, I tell my attendings from whenever I see them at conferences and such, I thank you very much for everything you've taught me, and I know how slim my opportunity was, and thankfully it worked out for me. But cut a long story short, I went ahead and signed up for the rotation. Went over there on my own dime and everything because this was not in conjunction with my with my residency. And after the first week, I happened to do it with my attending at the time. He's now retired, but Dr. Sherman Lease, and he may be a name a lot of your audience in the East Coast may know, because he's highly regarded in transitional surgery. His last, I'd say about 15 years were actually dedicated to transitional surgery because there were so few of them. I remember back in, I know I'm going off the subject, but he actually had surgeons who were doing transition surgeries come in to do lectures for us and such, because he wanted always for us to be on the cutting edge and to know everything that was possible to his to our benefit, and to his foresight, I guess you could say. But he actually decided that he wanted to go into that, and did very well. He's an incredible surgeon. He would listen to classical music, and he moved so elegantly that it seemed like he was moving at a normal pace. But we would do a facelift in like 2 to 3 hours, a full facelift. I'm not talking about these little mini facelifts. I'm talking about all the way up, including your brows and stuff. And it was just really impressive the way he worked, and that's why obviously he was the director of the program at the time. So after the first week, he said, "So now you have a taste of everything, Gabriel." And over the next 3 weeks, he kind of was trying to lay out the blueprint, because he had asked me if I was interested, and I said, "Oh, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't interested." He didn't know the story yet, and it was at this time that I told him, and he said, I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm only here for 1 more week." And he practically bit my head off saying, "What the hell are you telling me? Who goes on a rotation? What program sends a student on a rotation, not a student, a resident on a rotation for just 2 weeks? All rotations are for 4 weeks, all this stuff," and just kept on rambling about that. And I said, "I'm not here on a rotation, sir." And then he looked at me and thought like there was a mistake. I said, "I'm here on my vacation time." And then his jaw like completely dropped, and he said, "Are you telling me that your program wouldn't?" And I told him, "Yes, that's absolutely true." And he said, "And you're doing this on your own dime, and your program's not paying for you to come over and all this." I said, "Nope, it's nothing like that at all. It's coming out of pocket. This is essentially my vacation, and I just felt like I had to do this." And it really, I guess, impressed him. And so when it came down, and he, after the 2 weeks, he asked if I was going to apply, and I said, "Well, I thought I told him options of things, and I said, "I don't know what'll happen, because obviously not one person is not enough to get you in, and I know that this is a program, a fellowship where there are dozens of applicants for every one spot." He said, "Well, I think you should go ahead and apply." And I said, "All right, I'll consider it." And I did do it. And my understanding afterwards, when I actually got accepted, I was elated, of course. It's interesting. My sisters were not, because they were here thinking like, "Oh, Big Brother is," before they would be like, "Big Brother's a surgeon. He's saving lives." Now it's like, "What? You're a plastic surgeon? You're not going to save lives anymore?" I said, "Social lives." But when I actually went to the program, I got feedback from some of the other attendings, one of whom is now the current director, Benjamin Lamb. And he said, "When we were talking about all the different applicants, your name came up. He fought tooth and nail to keep you being considered. And everyone was wondering who the hell was this Gabriel Chiu that, and what was he doing for Dr. Lease that he's like fighting for you, like all this stuff. I'm not going to say it because I don't know how, if this is PG rated or what.
No, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, well, it's true. Some of them thought like, was he like sucking dick or what was he doing? But they would follow that up, and this was after maybe about 6 months or so that he told me this. But they followed it up saying like, I can see that you're dedicated though, and we can see why he really fought for you. And I had that kind of attitude because basically I felt very indebted to not only him but everyone else because they all had to eventually bow and or cave in and consider me and then accept me, and also to the whole program. That basically I looked at it as an opportunity. I did not just like take it as a job where at the end of the day I could go home and rest. My whole mentality about it was I only have 2 freaking years to learn and do as much as I can before I am thrown out there to the wolves and basically on my own to do everything. So any opportunity I had to get into the OR to learn something new, to do something, I took. I would, if my rotation was done and I was excused, I would call up the other attendings and ask if they were on call, and I'll, just tell me where I'll go ahead and pull call for them and such and whatnot. And or like if they were still in surgery, if they wanted a second assist, I'd come in and just to make sure that my colleagues, the other residents, didn't think I was like trying to bust in on their opportunities. I would make it clear that hey, I'm here to help you or to assist or whatnot. And they saw that I wasn't like a backstabbing kind of person. I've never been. Basically, they said some very nice things. I was really touched. They said some very nice things when I graduated. I kind of told my parents to stay home. I said, "You've seen me graduate enough times. You don't need to come for this." But they said some really nice things that have stuck with me, and I still feel indebted to them to this day. So take them out to dinner anytime I get a chance to. That's the least I could do.
Well, Dr. Chiu, I'm really glad that we're talking about this particular moment in your journey, because I think that for everybody listening, it's first of all super inspiring, but there's so many lessons in this. First one being that if you really want to pursue something, go for it wholeheartedly, even if you have to go down a path that's a little more difficult. Like in your case, having to start, going to a completely different school in a different city on your dime, on your vacation time, for God's sake. I think that people hearing this, it is inspiring because sometimes things are hard and sometimes you do need to step out of a path that you're on, but it's always worth it if you really try. And the other thing that's sticking out is that people respected you immediately after they realized that you were really serious about what it is that you were doing. And I think that especially in today's day and age where people pride themselves on not trying hard, if you show up and you try hard, you already stand out in the crowd.
True, very true. Yeah.
And so, Dr. Chiu, after your fellowship program, I know you worked as an employee for a while, but then shortly after that, you ended up starting your own practice. What was it like stepping into your own practice, building your business from the ground up?
First off, after finishing, I had job offers from a couple of my attendings and places in Philadelphia. I actually had also an offer from where I had done general surgery in that area, not from the general surgeons, of course. But I wanted to try to come back home to California. And I'm from Northern California originally. But the only opportunity I saw up there was being a burn director over in Richmond, which, if your audience knows, Richmond is a refinery town. There's a lot of oil refineries up there and such. And so we're talking about significant burns, inhalation burns, really bad stuff. Now, I was pretty comfortable with burns. I did my burn rotation in plastics up in Valhalla, which is over in, what do they call that area in New York? Well, it's in Westchester. But up there, New York Medical College is the facility, but it's one of their campuses. And we shared it with New York Medical College. One of the doctors I was there with at the time, Justin Sachs, I understand he's actually like high up or maybe even director of the plastics program for over at NYU, but he's definitely on faculty there. Super bright guy. Didn't like me at first because this is a different story. Let's see. But I, wanted to eventually get into cosmetics, and I know you have to pay your dues. Usually you do reconstructive for a while, and after getting some experience under your belt, the typical thing is, 3, 4, 5 years, you start dabbling into cosmetics and start getting into it. And also Northern California, this is back in 2003, so that I finished training. So it wasn't exactly an environment outside of your more forward places like Los Angeles and Miami. It wasn't exactly an environment where cosmetic surgery was something that you spoke about and it was acceptable. People would still speak in hushed tones, right? Or deny that any plastic surgery. So the best option I thought I had was to come down to LA and join this group. After a few years, I was I actually had been the most senior. I had been there the longest. And I was seeing a lot of the revision cases, not only patients coming to me, but from the other surgeons in the group. They would ask me to evaluate and see these patients, and I would go ahead and take care of them and do their revisions, correct them. And my wife, at the time, we were dating, and she said, "Do you realize that you're doing these surgeries without compensation from your colleagues?" And I said, "Yeah, but they kind of need the correction, da 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 da." She said, "Well, you should at least be compensated for it." And so I did ask, and I got a little something, but still, it was cutting into my ability to actually get a larger clientele and grow, for my referrals, because there's only one of you, and you only have so much time to be able to see patients and to do the surgeries, right? And eventually, she convinced me and helped me step away from the practice or from that group. They did want me to. They made the offer of making me a partner, but I declined. One of the things was I wasn't fully aligned with their business practices. I won't go into details about that, but I envisioned something more patient-centric rather than business-centric. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without my wife. She oversaw the build-out of our office, which we're still in, and we've been there since 2007. It used to be an E-Trade. So it went from an E-Trade to looking like a nice boutique-y. She actually modeled it after the Chanel boutique, with the white and black and the sliding doors and things like that. But yeah, that's how it went. It wouldn't have happened without her encouraging me and really being more than just an encouraging factor or wife. She quite literally is a partner. I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff without her. They don't teach you to do these things in medical school. It's like you're thrown out to the wolves. It's not, unless you take business classes when you're in college, you don't know the first thing about business or what you're going to need. You kind of learn about you should have this staff member and this staff member and things like this as you're going through your rotations and seeing how the private practices of your attendings are run. But you don't know how to run a business. You don't know how to build a business. You don't know how to maintain a business. Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. And I think that it's nearly impossible for any, well, at least I feel like a plastic surgeon, most plastic surgeons, there are some very, very select, gifted plastic surgeons who just have a knack for business. And you can tell who some of these people are. They coin different things, or they're trying to coin different things and stuff. And I'm not like that. I just don't have that kind of business creativity. I have creativity with my hands, and going, out of the box with having to take care of something, but not when it comes to like running a business or any of these things outside of the realm of clinical aspects.
When you mentioned something that I really want to highlight, Dr. Chiu, because you just mentioned that when you were with the group before starting your own practice, that you were not aligned with their business values, and you said that you are more patient-centric. I have to tell you, as a patient of yours, I can attest to that. I remember the first time I went into your office, I thought, he's going to see me, he's going to talk to me for 5 minutes, we're going to do the Botox, and I'm going to be out on my way. And it was actually my first time ever doing Botox, and you took the time to sit down, talk to me. You really educated me on the decision that I was making, and it felt like a very nurturing experience, not like traditional doctors. Like sometimes you walk in like, I'm super sick, and they'll be like, you're fine, and they'll walk out of the door, and it's like, don't you want to check at least? I think that is one thing that really sets you aside to Dr. Chiu, is that you really do care about your patients.
Well, thank you very much. It hits me right here when you say that, because when it comes down to it, I went into whatever you want to call this, medicine, surgery, plastic surgery, cosmetics, beauty. I went into this with the desire to want to help and want to do something for others. And one of the things that I can do as a plastic surgeon, besides helping someone achieve their goals and make them feel more beautiful, look more beautiful, and whatnot, is to at least educate them on some of these different things. I don't feel like I'm the kind of doctor where you come in and I say, all right, no problem, going to go ahead and do this, and just do it and get it done, like you said. There are options, and who knows what the best option is for you. We all read books, and we all get a different perspective sometimes when you read a book, more so than like a movie, for instance, right? And then we hear about this all the time. That's why people love these, well, I don't know if people do it anymore much because of all the tech that we have, but book clubs, they discuss how, what did they get out of this passage or this chapter and whatnot. So same kind of thing. You can tell me something, and how I interpret that may not be exactly what you meant. So I want to make sure, and first off, so Alexander, you are bothered by this, and would you prefer to have it looking like this or like this? Because these are different options that we can go ahead and move forward with. And depending on what you prefer, then we go ahead and talk about the different things. Or you may end up shooting back another question at me like, oh, never thought about that one. What's the difference between this and that? And then I go ahead and explain these things to you. So I feel like it's educating you. I mean, who knows if I'll see you again, or if you'll be seen by one of the other practitioners in my office, or if you, for your own reasons, decide to go to someplace, say, for instance, closer to you or cheaper for you or whatever else. But at least you've been educated. And quite frequently, I see patients coming back. They'll tell me something like, Dr. Chiu, I went to someone who was cheaper, but I totally understand, and when I now that I've gotten a chance to compare somebody like that versus you, The little bit of extra that I pay for your expertise or your knowledge is is worth much more than the difference. Um, you know, we have one face and everyone wants to look beautiful, especially in our area here.
Yes.
So, you know, at least try to be able to explain to people why things are one way or another, or what is achievable. Because some people also have a misconception of what's achievable.
And I remember one thing that was very important to me when I first went to see you was that I had very expressive, forehead muscles and very strong ones, so that they were thick. And I wanted to stop the wrinkling, but still maintain some movement in my eyebrows so that I can, express myself.
Hmm.
And I remember I left feeling like, yes, that's exactly what I got. But now, I want to go into the office and I want it frozen, like even in an emergency, like I don't want it to move.
Well, if you want that, I mean, as long as that's you understand, then yes, I'm okay with that. Some people do want to be completely frozen, and they're okay with it. But again, you got to make sure.
Yes, yes, and I'm half kidding because I actually do like to be able to express myself. But but Botox, if you're thinking about it, you should do it. It's great. And if you don't want to, then don't. I'm not forcing this on anybody, but I think that if you're interested, it's worth looking into.
Well, there's a reason why Botox is the number one cosmetic procedure done every single year.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
About 500 million people a year, or 500 million treatments a year, and that's in the U.S. alone.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Well, and Dr. Chu, so I want to go into now, building this business with your wife, which I think is also a really powerful part of your story, because I think that when people, first of all, to build a marriage together, building a family, a lot goes into that, of course, but then being able to also work with your spouse, I think is a beautiful thing. Can you talk to us about building, not just from a business perspective, but from the perspective of a husband, building this business with your wife?
She has a heart of gold. And any of her friends, if you talk to them, they will tell you so, because she freely gives of her, to a detriment of her own time or personal time. She gives of her time and energy and makes commitments where I wonder, how do you how can you take care of all this stuff? And at the same time, it's, you know, the same thing at the office. Some of the things that she comes in to take care of. And once when we have a good core group of staff who are running and moving efficiently like different cogs in a machinery, then things are great. She just comes in and troubleshoots and stuff like that. But there's always something that comes up, and I really, okay, we've been married 19 years. I've been very fortunate. I mean, I know 19 years is a long time, especially here in Los Angeles. And when I say I couldn't be doing this without her, it's the truth. I mean, I don't know how I would answer some of these questions. I probably would be very bad at trying to maintain a business. But I do know that she has sacrificed a lot of her own ambitions and her own wishes to help me and help us to be successful. She still, even now, continues to look at what's next, what's bigger, what's better. And we have some things that we've been thinking about happening in the next couple of years, and cross our fingers that we aren't taking too big of a bite. But at the same time, she still wishes to do some of the things she does. Like, for instance, I mean, she could, way long ago, she wanted to get her MBA or become a lawyer. And she's been encouraged by other people, like our own lawyers are like, oh my God, you should be a lawyer, kind of a thing, because the attention to detail that she has. But thankfully, I have her. And it's kind of interesting, like I said, her friends who know us and know her would say the same thing. And when we meet, like in social situations, like if there are other members of a board or something else like that, it's really interesting in that not that they come up to me and say, "Hi, so you're Christine's other half," or something like, "Oh, I don't even know what they would say." What I get is, "Thank you so much for letting us borrow her and letting us and letting her be on the board because she has such an impact on how they do things and what they do." She's actually turned down different things all the time. This past weekend was actually, I won't say exactly what, but was once again asked to be on the board of something major. And when I say something major, it's something where if you wanted to go to this particular program, all she has to do is say, "You really should be considering Alexander. He's really, whatever. I'd be surprised if you didn't get in." She has that kind. She does so much for other groups and organizations that she seems to have that kind of pull, and that's where other organizations that notice this come and ask her to be either a member or to help out in some way, just to get her perspective, because she definitely is an out of the box type of thinker, and she excels at troubleshooting and bringing things together. Okay, besides having a very good business sense, you know, we can look at like some of these things, and I'll say like, "Oh, that looks good," and she'll say, "No. After a couple of years, you're going to be da 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 da. This is a terrible contract." And it's like, okay, I didn't know you knew contract law, but yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you off the record what it was, but I'm not going to tell you on the record because then we'll have people bothering her to pull strings for them. Yeah, none of this would be possible without her. She lets me focus on what I excel at, which is taking care of patients and operating and doing, as we say, the surgical artistry of all this. And she's able to take the grunt work of the business management aspect, most of the practice running aspects and such off of me. So then I don't have to think about that, and I can really focus on what I love and what I do best. They say behind every successful man is an incredible woman, or incredible other, let's say, because it doesn't have to be a woman and whatnot. And it's so true. I don't think people look into this aspect of things that much. Think of anyone, and they did not do it all by themselves. It's very, very rare when they have done it all by themselves. I don't think Bezos would be saying that he did everything all by himself. I don't think, you just name it. I don't think anyone would, whether it was a partner or a significant other or a council of brains that you use for recommendations and suggesting things. You cannot do it all by yourself.
I agree completely, Dr. Chiu. And I think that I love that you're bringing this up too, because it's so true. And in my case as well, I would not be able to be doing what I'm doing without my husband and his support. And working with your spouse, I know that in certain instances, it can get hard because you're introducing other problems into your relationship that are purely about business. But there's also something very beautiful and calming about working with your spouse because you know that they've got your best interests at heart and you guys both have the same vision for the projects that you're working on or the businesses that you're working on. So, and another thing that you and Christine have done that I think is huge is, first of all, agreeing to do Bling Empire, which When at first glance, I don't think you really realize how big of an impact you guys have had in a positive way on the AAPI community, because you see it in its reality show, but it's the first major reality show with an all Asian cast. And the visibility that you guys have brought to the AAPI community, especially in our culture in this country, I think is so important and huge. My question is, did you guys realize how big the impact is going to be when you've decided to get involved?
Um, we knew that there was potential for it to be something huge because it hadn't been done before, a completely Asian cast. I mean, now keep in mind that um, the whole process, obviously, for anyone who's in the industry, you know that it first starts with an idea, and that idea has to be pen to paper. You know, you have to have a layout and format of what you're thinking of, and then pitch that format. And out of that, if you're successful, then filming something to represent that, a pilot, you know, and then shopping around the pilot. And so there's a lot of steps that go into it. So it starts way before when you see, oh, you know, on Netflix next month, you know, this show. It didn't start filming yesterday. So at the time of the conception, there was nothing out there that was like this. Now, obviously, when we were going through fleshing out everything, and I say we like I'm part of the brains. No, really, it was. Well, I don't know if they listen to you, but hey, Jeff Jenkins out there, hello. I'm talking about you and Christine. But when they're fleshing it all out and everything, you know, there were some things that happened. We know about Crazy Rich Asians. And hey, John, if you happen to listen out there too, congratulations on your award last month. Or last week. Sorry, last week. Oh, you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah, a great guy. He's incredibly nice, incredibly creative, and have had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. And he and Christine's buddies with a lot of people. But yeah, we knew that there would be potential, but also was this going to be something that would maybe prevent it from being successful, prevent it from getting filmed because it was just too singular in vision, or, you know, as opposed to like maybe, oh, why don't you consider having multi-Asian or maybe, you know, multi-ethnic races involved instead of just one, or where are the token Caucasians or something like that, as opposed to, you know, being completely 100%. And thankfully, it did go well and it was successful. The first day of filming actually was on the day that our son was born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was. I remember Jeff running around in there with us as we were going through things. They weren't in the delivery room. They wouldn't. But it was funny. He tried to get in. They allowed me in because the docs said, "Hey, you want to come?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." And so I was holding my wife's hand and everything. And afterwards, they were like, "Oh, you want to scrub in and sew up?" And I said, "No, you guys do your job. It's all right. No big deal." Same thing with the circumcision. It was like, "Oh, you want to do this?" I said, "I know how, but no, I would hate the angst of something like, and Dad, it's all your fault." That
Yeah, for sure.
Can you imagine if they had some issue with something? You know, again, body dysmorphia happens in a lot of different ways. But yeah. It was not expected to have blown up as big as it did. But it was also interesting. It was a big learning experience. Never experienced something like that. It really woke me up to not just reality TV, but the whole uh, business of Hollywood in general.
And Dr. Chu, a topic that you and Christine also share on the show, which I think was really amazing, was about your IVF journey. And I think that that was a really great thing to do because there are a lot of really heavy negative emotions that go along for people with that journey. And I think that getting to see somebody else's journey and hear them talk about it, I think is huge because sometimes you feel very alone in something like that. Why did you guys decide to actually share this on the show?
Well, the interesting thing is that um, we each have known lots of friends and associates who've had issues in the past. One of the things is that, like I didn't know, is men have. It used to be thought of that it was the woman's problem. Oh, something's happening wrong with them, da da da, and all this stuff. And you know, as we went through it, we understood it's not. There's a lot of misconceptions, and um, it's kind of funny, but I know a lot of doctors who have had difficulties with infertility. And it may be something that we, from our experiences going through training and such, whether it's exposure to radiation or maybe it's the long hours that we do or something else that maybe decreases it. I obviously no study's been done, but personally I've known a lot and I still know a lot. But because of the misconceptions and the fear of speaking out about it, when we are seeing, when I say we, us among the people we know and everything, we're seeing so many people who have experienced it, or maybe experienced it in the past. Because also the fact of the matter is that a lot of couples are having kids later, and so that affects things as well. And you hear about the numbers of successful pregnancies and everything else, and you're like, wow, how is it that some people it's just so easy, and other people it's like so difficult. And we know quite a few couples who don't have kids. Of course, some of them are by choice, and others are because it's that time has come and gone, and we going through it, we know that there's more to the stories than that, and it's not fair that that they're made to feel like they have to like keep make an excuse for it or put it aside, because that's not the case for everyone, and it was a difficult decision, very personal, but something that we felt that was beneficial to discuss. And all the feedback that we got afterwards, whether it was in DMs or just comments when we bump into people and stuff, it was. I don't want to say I feel proud about it or anything, because it was just our story, and it happens to be a true one. We tried for a very long time, um, and it was very difficult. But it was when people would come up and let us know, we knew that we had done the right thing in like making it more accepted. Because that's the thing. I think a lot of people felt it wasn't acceptable to be able to say this. Because in many cultures, you think of a culture and pretty much part of that culture to some extent has something to do with family. Some of them are very strong, like Asian cultures are like that, Jewish cultures are like that. A lot of
Latino
them.
cultures are
Yeah,
like,
a lot of them are like that. So it was it was nice to go ahead and if you will, pull back the curtain and allow people to feel it being normalized.
And what advice would you give to a couple that's just starting their IVF journey today?
So obviously, it starts a little before that in you know go, going through trying to have a child. And in general, they say that if you're not successful after about 6 months of anything happening, even if you have some unfortunate occurrences and such, um, go and check, go and get checked. That's the other thing. A lot of people are scared to go and get checked because they don't want to know, quote unquote, the truth.
Mm.
But go and get checked. Make sure that it isn't something that can be easily remedied, and just keeping it hidden. It's the same thing about, oh, I have this thing growing and I don't want anyone to know about it. So you're wearing clothes to hide it. And, but why are you going to let it progress to a cancerous form if it could be taken care of early, and then before you know, it's too late. Same kind of thing. If you're wanting to have a family and you've been very diligent in trying for at least 6 months, like I said, is what we were told. Go and get checked. Make sure that everything is going well. Sometimes there can be some medications that will help, or maybe it's even something like supplementation or getting extra sleep. Stress has a big deal to do with it. You hear, and it's crazy some of the things you hear about, like the positions, that in order to try to get pregnant and stuff. And it's like, come on, that's like, whatever. And it's like, but we tried it anyway. But yeah, it's like, okay, I don't believe it, but let's go. And but again, you can keep it. The sooner you try to find out and get a solution, the more likely you're going to be successful with that solution. And if it requires something more, then vet out your doctors and get referrals from people. See, that's one of the things. Now people are okay about talking about it, and you'd be surprised how many people have used IVF. It's not just that person who, she's like 50 years old. How did she have a kid? Okay, it's not just somebody like that. It can be somebody who is 29, 20, and just that they have had issues. Or they and their partner have had issues. But vet them out and talk with them, see what it is. And just like anything else, the same thing with plastic surgery. I recommend doing all your research beforehand, but only choose 2, maybe 3 people that you really have on your list to go see and see what those doctors have to say about everything. Obviously, each doctor can have different costs as well because IVF is expensive. But see what they say and what their policies are, and are they going to? One of the big things is, are they going to be there for all the crucial steps, not only in diagnosing and cooking up a formula of medications for you, because that's very important to not give you too much and not give you too little. But also, are they going to be the one to do the egg harvesting? Are they going to be the one to do the embryo planting? All this stuff is really important, I think.
Over the past decade, Dr. Chiu, what trends have you seen in cosmetic surgery, and have there been any that surprise you?
Okay, so trends come and go, and there have been quite a few different things. But in general, what we've seen over the last 10 years, depending on what type of things we're talking about, so I'll split it up. Like for instance, with breasts, we've seen the trend to go a bit smaller, a bit more natural. And to be honest, with every cosmetic surgery, it tends to be the trend where at first it's exaggerated because people kind of want to subtly let others know that they went ahead and did this or that or whatever. And then it tends to be a little overdone, and then they want to kind of look a little more natural, so it normalizes, if you will. That tends to be the trend. So breast augmentation used to be go big or go home. People still say that, but really the choices that patients are making are a bit smaller than they were before. Like, maybe not a cup size smaller as far as like what their final result is going to be, but maybe, instead of being a full whatever cup, being an average whatever cup, like a half cup size smaller or something like that. Even butts have gone from big and, I mean, sorry for the expression, but in your face, to looking more like a bubble, and then now looking more natural, and just kind of looking very, very nice and perky and round, but something that is almost athletic. With liposuction, you've seen that too. People are not tending to go with these etched looks and such, the fake abs and fake muscles that are being done. I mean, sure, there are people still doing it, just like the big butts or big breasts, but the tendency has been to go away from that to look more natural. And also, patients like yourself, well, not that you did liposuction, but a patient like yourself, or I would say probably most of the people in the Los Angeles area who would consider liposuction are not looking to be exaggerated, but want to just get rid of trouble areas, look thinner, and they want to have their work show through. In other words, they don't want the fake muscles there. They can do well on their own, thank you very much. They just want to be able to see it better, okay? Noses, back in the 80s, used to be, a ski slope kind of a thing. And then it became more and more normalized. And there was a slight trend. It's really more because of the K-pop kind of thing where the quote unquote Tinkerbell nose, but you notice how you're not hearing about that anymore. But
Yes.
that was the same, like the button nose or the ski slope nose, just different names for a similar variation. But now it's kind of, more of a normalization. You can still have a cute nose, but more of a normalization, because trends come and go, and that's the fact of the matter. So you want something that is going to have longevity. You can only do a nose so many times. I mean, we know what happened to MJ. So yeah. And as far as like recent trends, I would say that a good deal of recent trends have been stimulated by social media, and not in the way that you're initially thinking, although, yes, that part is part of it. Social media, also COVID. Social media, well, now instead of, looking like this star or that star, it's more like this influencer or that influencer and such. But also because social media selfies, the camera very much distorts how things are. It's an ultra wide angle lens. And so people are like looking at themselves all the time because they're trying to do the selfie, and it's like, well, that's not exactly right. And they keep on taking multiple like slight changes in angles, and they may think that they have quote unquote an issue with the way that they look, and they come in wanting to correct it. So that is kind of been a trend, like liposuction along the jawline to give it a stronger look. Well, it all depends on what each person wants, but generally it's been to get more definition and contouring and symmetry. With computer work and from zooming and whatnot, and also being on your phone, tech neck, the lines across your neck, horizontal lines. So that's been something that wasn't even considered in the past and is now being addressed regularly, I'd say. And then with regards to COVID, that's kind of influenced all that because we had to go to a point where we were doing things remotely. And again, same thing, your video camera on your iPad there is a wide lens, not like the cameras that you're using to film. So they're kind of distorted, and you see these different aspects a lot more.
Oh, that's so interesting, Dr. Chu. So what you're saying is that when you hold your phone up to take a selfie, that the way your face looks in that frame is not necessarily how you really look because it's a wide angle lens.
Generally, they're a wide angle lens. How much wide angle? I've never like researched the different cameras and stuff. Even though, like for instance, you look at it and it says 1 time, 5 times, and you're thinking zooming in. But even when you zoom in and out, and you see these again, going back to social media or TikTok, you see these different things like solutions to, or try this trick next time you film yourself and everything, where they're holding the camera upside down, or they like do it on a zoom like a 5 times, and they put the camera farther back. So then you get a different perspective. There's a different, I don't know how you want to say it, that would be in layman's terms, but basically it's the width of or the angle of exposure. You know, when you're closer up, it's a wider angle. So things, you get more of your peripheral things squished in, and then you look like you're farther back. But things that are right in the middle, as you come closer, start to look larger. So
Interesting.
and then so when you're in telephoto or different things, and you know, these are little things that we see. That's where the photography stuff comes in too. You know, you see these things when you're like playing around with photography if you're an amateur photographer. But yeah, it's interesting. People don't realize that this is not the norm. As if you took like a standard camera, say a 35 millimeter, and used a 50 millimeter lens on it, which is which is the standard. On these smaller digital cameras, they're much smaller. It can be something like 25 or something like that is a standard lens, but that's still wide. It just is a smaller. Well, basically, the chip that the image is displayed on and gets digitally made is smaller. So proportions. It all has to do with proportions.
Well, hearing you say that about the selfie camera has me feeling very relieved because sometimes I'll take a selfie and I'll be like, oh my God, what happened to me? And then I'll go look in the mirror and think, well, I actually look okay, not like in that photo. So you know what? I'm going to take it. This is the truth I'm going to live by. Whether it's the selfie or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Another thing you were talking about that I've been very curious about for some reason, I'm not looking into doing it. I'm just curious about it. The butt augmentations. Is it filler? Is it fat from other areas of the body? And maybe this is totally wrong, but I always thought if you did something to your butt, when you sit on your butt, would it feel natural or would you feel like numb or like you were sitting on something? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, I don't have personal experience about that, but it depends on which method you do. And in general, when we're talking about a Brazilian butt lift or BBL, we're talking about the procedure where you're taking fat from one area, and usually it's the surrounding area, to help contour and make the butt look more shapely, like your love handles, maybe your thighs, the small of your back, the waistline, various areas like that, and injecting the fat into the butt. Now, you want the fat to survive. It's not like you're using it as a filler, but what happens is your body actually incorporates the fat because it does know that it's from, part of yourself. But
Oh, interesting.
after a couple hours, the fat cells give off a chemical signal of distress, lactic acid. And so the cells of your body that are going around and patrolling things, they recognize this and go into action, sending off signals to come and help, just like if you were to sound an alarm. And there's different processes that go on to help not only keep the cells alive temporarily, but also start to grow blood vessels into the tissues so that they have a permanent blood supply and circulation. And then after that, anchoring into place and getting them to become permanent there. And that whole process is a BBL. You can use an implant, which you have to create a space for, just like for breast augmentation with an implant. And in general, they are not as in demand because, yes, you do get numbness more because of you have to release and open up a pocket. So you do damage more nerves and such in that respect that go to the skin surface. So you may have more numbness. You can also have other issues that happen. You go ahead and Google problems with butt implants, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff that you never thought were possible. And finally, the whole procedure itself has one of the highest risks of infection because of its location.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, there's a high risk of rejection due to infection, or just getting an infection and a wound opening up and such. And then injecting fillers or products, they're temporary. And also, since they're not your own tissues, they don't anchor in place and they can migrate, just like we're hearing now that fillers in our face and such can migrate. And even more so in this area because you're using a larger volume. So you end up getting that, what could look really nice and full over the years can start looking like a wet diaper and start to hang.
Oh,
Yeah, and then, you have to have some surgical procedure to remove it. And I'm not going to out anybody, but I can definitely tell you I've seen the telltale signs of patients who've had this unfortunate experience. And then you see their butt getting smaller. So there is a new product out there, and it was something that I had done a social media post on my Instagram a few weeks back, maybe about a month ago or so. A new product that happens to be made of fat and extracellular matrix. And it's processed so that it doesn't have any antigenic properties. In other words, your body doesn't identify it as belonging to another person because it is donated. And it's too early to say exactly if it behaves more like filler or more like fat, but what we do know from other similar examples of similar products is that your body does break some of it down, especially the extracellular matrix, using it as a blueprint and grow back its own fat and stuff in there.
it's amazing.
So yeah, and it's really promising. The Not trying to promote anything, but the product is called Aloe Clay, and it's been out for a few months now, roughly. Just guessing, maybe about 6 to 8 months. And there, of course, because it had to be in studies, there are doctors who have used it longer than that. But the studies so far have been very, very promising.
And what procedures or trends do you think are going to be coming next?
It seems that the way trends have been focusing on finer details and the direction that they're focusing, it feels like the next trends are going to be migrating to other parts of our bodies that are next. Like, we're seeing more things being done with the neck now and smaller little things. We're getting to the point where there's a kind of a convergence. There are non-surgical treatments that are getting better and better and looking more similar to surgical results. And there are surgical results that are getting better and better and looking non-operated on. In other words, using techniques that really hide where the incisions are, or the incisions are in places where we don't, where it would be improper for us in public to look for it. For instance, this lateral brow lift used to be that we would do it along the hairline, and now that it's done usually about an inch behind, depending on the hair growth, it's not something you're not going to go like, hey Alex, looking at your temple area and stuff, trying to find that scar line, and also now going with facelifts that not only are manipulating different planes of our tissues, which is what deep plane facelift does, in different directions, or even lifting multiple planes of tissue in a similar fashion, or even if they're pulling in the same direction or a similar direction, like a smastectomy, but altering the way we do it so that the incisions are not anywhere noticeable. In other words, the most noticeable place is in front of the ear. I still feel like doing a proper facelift and having a very fine incision line that hides really well after it heals completely is not noticeable in front of the ear or along the ear, because one of the issues is bringing everything back behind the neck and up here in the temple so that they twist around like so. You get a bunching. I've seen it where you get a bunching of the tissues back here. Now, that may settle down, but what happens if it doesn't? So again, a patient selection with the proper procedure is a necessity, I feel, in order to look natural and have everything look in harmony. I think that you have to have more than one arrow in your bag, if you will. If you keep on shooting the same arrow, it may not be the right arrow for everything that you're trying to target. Okay. Sometimes a mini facelift is proper for someone, like in your age group where there's very little that needs to be done. But you have to hear each person's individual story, and that's where that psychology comes in. And I ask these questions because, well, what if you had come in and told me that you lost 60 pounds, and here's a photo of you before that, and this is how chubby your face was, and now you feel like everything is very loose, even though it because of your youth, you look like it looks pretty normal. Then somebody like that, a deep plane may be more than appropriate. That may be the best option. So you have to evaluate each person individually, and I feel that properly you need to have more. You need to be able to do more than one specific type of treatment, and that goes for anything else. I don't just do this, the same tummy tuck for every single person and force the removal of skin to do a full tummy tuck. There's a number of different kinds of tummy tucks and variations I can do, or breast surgeries, number of different variations of things, lifts and such. Liposuction, same thing, and same thing with faces and noses.
In addition to being a full-time plastic surgeon, you and your wife have supported many charitable organizations. How do you decide which organization you're going to support?
If I was to give advice to someone who's considering supporting something, support something that's true to your heart, okay? Because even no matter how small or how great it is, whether it's recognized or not, and that's not what we're looking for, you're not looking necessarily, I mean, some people are, is what I mean, to have your name up or be recognized for this donation or that donation. But that there are lots of people in need, lots of different things that are in need. So look for something that is true to your heart that you want to support and you can feel good about. After all, yes, they're write-offable and there's that benefit, but you don't necessarily have to donate to the same thing every single year. And we switch it around every now and then. We tend to, there's a lot of different things that we've donated to. We've donated to everything from the local school fundraiser to the King's Foundation overseas, and various things in between. We really enjoy or look at focusing on things that support children in one way or another, and also moms. That seems to be a common theme for us with different things. And the other thing that we tend to support is first responders, especially in the last 10 years. We've been doing much more of that, whether it's local police or whatnot. And we also donate to church groups and everything, but especially things that are more focused on family and children. I'm trying to think what we've most recently donate to, and I can't keep track of it. Sometimes my accountant has actually in the past has actually sent us emails saying like, now this can roll over to the following year, but you need to cut back, you need to pull back on your donations and stuff. And it's not, and it's like, well, okay, well, it's not about that, but we try to do it. And it's also part of our mission statement for our practice. You know, I don't have a story where I, grew up with an extreme amount of hardship. I don't have a story where I, was down and out personally, or had issues that caused me to become down and out. And I understand others do. When you have been privileged in different aspects, the best thing you can do is to share that with others who haven't been, and try to do something where you can leave a positive impact in the world in whatever way you happen to be doing it. When I was a teenager, time was something that I gave freely of to doing volunteer stuff and everything. And obviously, as you gain responsibility and go into the workforce and everything else, you don't have as much time to go ahead and do these different things. So now it's more monetary donations or donating in other aspects. I would love to still be able to donate my time, but I'm looking to try to, I have difficult enough time trying to find enough for my wife and my kid. So.
I think the fact that you never went through any kind of hardship where you were down and out in that sense, I think that that is still a really strong testament to what you're doing now, because it's really easy for people, out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't affect me. I'm not going to think about it. So the fact that it is on your radar and that this has been something that's been prevalent throughout your entire life, I think is really inspiring. And I think it's goals too, to think, wait, what? Who did we just donate to most recently? You know what I mean? Like, that's really cool that you guys donate to so many different causes, and that it's always been at the front and center. I really love that.
Yeah, it's I obviously I thank my parents for everything. Of my siblings, I'm the oldest of my siblings, and I'm the only one who actually has a job still, quote unquote. When I say job, I mean not working in the family business, but quote unquote working. Growing up, they instilled in me the sense of hard work, and because you just never know when you may undergo some kind of hardship for one reason or another. My grandmother, when I was a little kid, she would tell me stories of her childhood. When she remembers going from being a child, who wore white gloves, wore pretty dresses, fancy shoes, and had servants holding an umbrella over her, and not having to worry about a single thing in the world except going to school and of course, a different age, learning to become at that time, going from being a girl to becoming a trad mom. But then, war happened, and she remembers and told me, I won't go into all the stuff, you'd be surprised, but, worried about like the Japanese invasion into Hong Kong and stuff and everything that was going on. And even like losing a sister and just trying to stay alive. They had to, as a little girl, she had to, with her mom and her other siblings, try to swim across a strait in order to get to safety because of how things were. And her dad had stayed to help fight because that's what they were supposed to do. Obviously, she knows what happened to her dad, but her sister on the way drowned. So and she remembers, and she'd tell me about it, and cry every now and then, remembering everything. So but you just never know when something changes like that. Not saying that we're going to go through a war and I'm going to have to swim across, I don't know, across the bay here or something. But yeah, you just have to appreciate that you won't have everything forever. So what are you going to do with it?
Mm. And that's true just even in the sense of life. I mean, we all die and as you get older, you lose certain things. It can be health, it can be material things, anything really. And then at the end, I mean, we don't take anything with us. So we do lose everything at some point.
Hmm. I mean, you can go ahead and give it all to your children, but uh, does that really stimulate them to become that strong person that you became?
Mm-hmm.
So, I could name friends I know who, where uh, the patriarch donated, like even upwards as far as 90% of their fortune and only gave 10% in their will to the families because, and part of that was to have them uh, not struggle, but to give them a seed money, but they had needed to learn to be successful. So this is the point where my wife would be like, "So why the hell haven't you learned how to run a business yet?"
Well, Dr. Chu, you've lived a very full life. You have all these experiences. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
I would say you can't do it alone. Appreciate those who are willing to help and be ready to help the next person who comes behind you. I know that sounds very similar to like, pass on what you've gained from and everything, and which is true, but in a different sense, not necessarily because it's your duty to pass it on, like it is when you're like in training and stuff like that, and you're training the next person to come and take your place or whatnot. But I'm saying just in general, go beyond that, go outside of that into other facets of your life, things that you care about. Um, and I think another thing is, and I mean, I'm old school, I need to learn this too. And that's that things change, circumstances change. Give someone the benefit of the doubt if it seems like they are changing and help them through that if they are changing, if they're changing for the better. Because like someone you can think is a complete asshole or dick or whatnot, no one's going to give you brownie points for just staying out of their way or like cutting them down. Sometimes you can go ahead and lend a hand, but they may like, you can get stabbed in the back when you do something like that. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try again. If you see an opportunity to do so and to help them go through their change for the better, their learning experience and such, give them, be willing to give them a hand. It's short-sighted to just like paint someone into a certain persona or a picture and assume that they're this person, they're going to be this way for the rest of their life. Maybe they will change. Now, don't waste your time. You want to. That's why I say you want to make sure you see something that, hey, I think they're actually seeing the light and help them out with it, because we all change our perspectives and we grow from it. With other things, I think that there is always going to be someone who is more than you or better than you or whatever. But there's also plenty of people who are not. Learn from those who you can learn from and help those who are trying to learn to brush off the dirt from their knees and get up again and move forward. God sees everything that we do, and whether you believe in afterlife or not, The fact of the matter is that, I think that you will have um, lived a fuller life and be more successful if you try to do some good in the world. And I need to learn that sometimes because I'm sometimes not only too hard on myself, but also on people I love. And that's why I was saying I'm old school, because that's that Asian mentality thing. So
And Dr. Chiu, where's the best place that people can keep up with you? And for those in the LA area who want to make an appointment with you and see you, where's the best place to do that?
Well, socially, I guess you can follow me. Well, you know what? Actually, I'll be honest. The best way to follow me is to follow my wife, because she shows more stuff about our family interactions and things than I do on my feed. But that would be all lowercase Christine Chiu with a CHR. For me, it would be Dr. Chiu BHPS for Beverly Hills Plastic Surgery. I'm actually the idiot who pays the taxes to have that name. My feed is more regarding plastic surgery, of course, but I do splash it around with some of our personal life and everything every now and then, especially like what you call it. What are those posts called where you're just for 24 hours?
Oh,
Why
the
can't
stories.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. Yeah, I'll usually do something that's more personal on the stories rather than an actual post. And then as far as coming in to see us over at Beverly Hills Plastic Surgery, so you can look me up on my website, Beverly Hills Plastic Surgery, INC for Inc.com, or BHPSINC.com. And our address is at 9454 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 108. That's the ground floor in Beverly Hills.
Well, I'm going to include all of the links to the social media handles and the website and all the information about the practice in the description below. So anybody who wants to check it out, you can easily do that by clicking down in the description.
Oh, thank you.
And Dr. Chiu, if you could go back in time and offer your younger self one bit of advice right before embarking on your specific career path, what would it be?
Don't give up. Nothing worthwhile was ever easy. And so don't give up. If I was to look back at it, there are different things, different ways where I could have gone where I'd be like filthy. It would and have such a cush life, but it wouldn't be the life I'm leading now. And I wouldn't change the way my life has gone for anything in the world, even through all the different hardships, whether it was academic or racial or whatever else, because you do go through all of that stuff, especially going through different parts of the country. But I would tell myself, keep working hard at it, follow your passion, and when an opportunity shows itself, take the step forward, because you'll regret it if you don't.
Well, Dr. Chiu, thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm so grateful for your time, and this is such a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you. You make this so easy, Alexander. Thank you for making this easy. I hope I was energetic enough with all this, and I can see the boss is calling.